What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Yammy Noob. Today is gonna be a good one. I know a lot of you are aspirational and beginner riders, and we are going to be ranking the best beginner motorcycles on sale for 2023. Now, that's a big, broad subject, right? So we gotta whittle it down a little bit. First of all these bikes are under 50 horsepower. Thought to myself that, we can recommend 650s and some other stuff for older riders, but I think bar none, under 50 horsepower, kind of middle of the road, that's gonna be your best bet for beginner motorcycles. So all the bikes featured today are under 50 horsepower. Also, the bikes featured today are all gonna be able to be bought brand spanking new. If I was gonna do a video with used motorcycles from the past 10 years or 20 years or whatever, this list would have been like 50 bikes long. It was already like 30 bikes and I had to cull it down. So we have the top 15 motorcycles on sale today, starting from worst of the worst all the way to the very best. So stick around and make sure you check out our recommendation for the very best beginner motorcycle you can buy brand new. Without further ado, let's get into this list. All right, folks, we're gonna rip the Band-Aid off clean and quick here for number 15 on our spot. It's a Harley-Davidson Iron 883. If you can believe it, this motorcycle is still sold brand new. I think for next year, for 2024, they're stopping production of this bike. So Harley-Davidson Iron 883, it's a V-twin, 883 cc's, as the name implies, comes in at $11,249. That is eye-wateringly expensive for the bike that you're getting for that price. 1980s technology, let's put it that way. 49 horsepower, 54 foot-pounds of torque. I have ridden this motorcycle and owned it as a giveaway bike back in 2020. And yeah, since we're talking about beginner bikes, this is an atrocious option for your first bike. It's super expensive. It is ridiculously underpowered for what it is. It's heavy, it's weird, it's awkward. And you really should just buy this motorcycle used if you're looking at getting an Iron 883. There's virtually no reason to buy a brand new Harley-Davidson Iron 883. So this bike is the bottom of the barrel, number 15. Let's keep it rolling. Okay, number 14 on the list. This is going to offend some people, but it is what it is. I got to tell you people how it is. It's the Kawasaki KLR 650. Ooh! Yeah, ouch. Single cylinder, 652 cc's, comes in at $6,899. Kind of expensive for what you're getting, in my opinion. 40 horsepower, 40 foot-pounds of torque, and I have ridden this motorcycle. Now, the KLR doesn't really do anything all that great. So the KLR 650 is not a very good off-road bike. It doesn't do touring duty that well, and I just think that there are better options, and unless you really love brand new KLRs, I think you should skip this one. Number 13th on our list today is the CF Moto 300NK, bit of a stranger competitor for this category, but it's a single cylinder, 292 cc's, comes in at a ridiculous $3,999. That's about $1,000 cheaper than almost anything on this list. It's only a couple $100 more than a Honda Grom, for God's sake. 29 horsepower, 19 foot-pounds of torque. I've not gotten the chance to ride this bike, but it's an interesting option in the beginner bike category. It is crazy cheap. Now, reliability might be up in the air a little bit with these Chinese bikes, so I still think you're better off choosing a Japanese ride, but definitely don't discount these motorcycles. Keep them in your contention, and if you're very, very price conscious, very price sensitive, this might be the right bike for you. But for our list today, it sits at number 13. Let's keep it moving. Number 12 on the list today is the venerable Honda Grom. Now, you might be asking, Yam, such a small, lovable, fun, goofy little motorcycle. Why have you ranked it 12th on your list? That feels so low for a Honda Grom. Well, here's the thing. Honda Groms are fun, great, cool little motorcycles, and I really love them. However, I don't think they're the best first bike, your best beginner bike, your entry into motorcycling. Number one, because they are not full-sized. It's gonna warp your perception around other normal-sized motorcycles. You're gonna feel like other bikes are really, really big and they're just awkward and not very fun to ride, and you're always gonna try to go back to this Grom thing. I think the Grom makes a fantastic second motorcycle, but here's the specs on the Honda Grom. 125 cc's, $3,399 on the showroom floor, which is kind of expensive in my opinion. 9 horsepower and 7 foot-pounds of torque, working with single-digit numbers right there. So Honda Grom, 12th on our list for today, unfortunately. Let's move on. Up next is the Yamaha MT-03, little parallel twin, 321 cc's. It makes 42 horsepower and 20 torque. Cost $4,999, which is a pretty good deal for a full-size Japanese motorcycle, and I have ridden and given one of these away before. Now, the MT-03 is a pretty good buy. We rode and reviewed and owned one of these MT-03s back in 2020, and I thought it was a great motorcycle for an entry-level rider, but it had a couple things that I felt really limited it. For example, the seat height was pretty low. That was a great thing, but overall, the ergonomics package on this motorcycle was very tight, very awkward, very small. Even for me at 5'11", I'm not the tallest guy in the world by any stretch, but even for me as a bit of like a average plus-sized person, I felt a little cramped on the bike. It also doesn't make as much torque as some of the other options. It is as interesting as some of the options as well. So MT-03 for me is number 11 on today's list. And as we get up in the list, you will see that there's a trend happening of the bikes that I'm picking, so don't get it twisted. All right, folks, number 10 on the list is a bike that's near and dear to my heart. It's the Yamaha R3. So same engine as the MT-03, 321cc parallel twin power plant, producing 42 horsepower and 20 foot-pounds of torque. I have owned two of these motorcycles, one as my very first beginner bike, almost 8 years ago now, and one as a giveaway bike in 2019. That was a lot of fun. These bikes are great. It's got the R-bike styling with appropriate power. It's a great choice, but in today's world, I think at the price of $54.99, it's just not offering quite enough for that price. But if you like R-bikes like I did back in the day and still do, and you want that Yamaha styling because it is just so cool, I mean, how can you not look at something like an R6 or an R1 and just drool over it? If you want that, but in a baby version, I mean, accept no substitutes. It's the Yamaha R3 all day, but I still think that there are better options further up on the list for your first motorcycle if you're looking for a great all-arounder and something great that can teach you. Let's keep going. All right, folks, number 9 on today's list is the Kawasaki Z400. Parallel twin, 399 cc's, 48 horsepower, and 28 foot-pounds of torque. And I have ridden one of these motorcycles, and there's just nothing you can really say bad about the Z400. I mean, it's a great all-around package, makes a great amount of power, it's super fun to ride. It suffers a little bit from that same thing that the MT-03 suffers from, and that it's a little bit small, but all of the Kawasaki Z bikes are kind of like that. They have a weird like scoop to them and the Tsugomi styling, and they're a little awkward and small. The only bike that doesn't have that is the ZH2, and that is not a beginner bike, so don't let me catch you buying one of those. Gonna come in at $5,399 for the Z400, and it's a really, really solid choice, but I think if you're trying to do that super big-brained move and trying to get the best beginner bike possible, you may want to stick around and see the kind of podium places on today's list. Up next is another one from Kawasaki. In 8th place is the Kawasaki KLX 300 Dual Sport. Now, the reason I put the KLX 300 Dual Sport above the Z400 and the R3 and the MT-03 and those kind of standard bikes is because you're gonna learn more with the dual sport bike. It's more fun, it's cooler to ride, you can do more with it, you can go off-road. It will teach you and accelerate your path to becoming a rider much, much faster. The KLX 300 Dual Sport is a great option. So 292cc single cylinder, 33 horsepower, 21 foot-pounds of torque, $57.99 for this bad boy, and it's just a solid option. I don't rank it any higher because bikes further up the list are more flexible, friendlier, and better, and the range on these bikes is an issue too. If you're trying to do big miles, obviously the KLX 300 is not going to be the best choice for something like that, and you're going to want to get something that has a bigger fuel tank and is a little bit more friendly to ride for a longer time. But as an entry point into motorcycling, the KLX 300 is a great option. All right, folks, number 7 on today's list is the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. Now, this is a bike that really grew on me. This is a motorcycle that we had as a giveaway bike not too long ago. I had a lot of strong opinions about Royal Enfield's Interceptor 650, but it's a bike that is definitely more than the sum of its parts. And if you just look at the spec sheets, you're gonna walk away a little bit confused and not really understand why I've rated it so high on today's list in 7th place. So, parallel twin, 649 cc's, 47 horsepower, 38 foot-pounds of torque, $6,149 in base trim, but that can be a little bit more expensive if you get different paint jobs on the gas tank and stuff like that. But the coolest thing about the Royal Enfield is that it's a big bike feel in a beginner package. So you get this velvety parallel twin with a 270-degree crank. People look at it and feel like, yeah, that's a real motorcycle. You know, it doesn't look like a kind of beginner or cheap or entry bike. I mean, famously, we put ours in downtown Austin, and people thought that it cost $25,000. So, yeah, the Royal Enfield is a really, really cool option if you're looking at beginner bikes. I think that it makes a lot of sense and is really cool. All right, number 6 for today is the Honda Rebel 500. This is a great beginner motorcycle, and the biggest reason is the seat height, baby. People buy Rebels specifically because they have such a low seat height. People can get a really commanding stance over the machine, and it gives them so much more confidence. Rebels are extremely popular with women also, who on average are smaller than men. So I think the global average for a woman is like 5'4" or 5'5", something like that. And so if your inseam is a little bit smaller, you want a bike that you can flat foot very easily and comfortably, was the Rebel 500. And I think it's the only real beginner cruiser that is making any type of sense in the market. Like I said, Iron 883, crazy expensive, woeful technology. The Rebel 500 gives you that cool cruiser, laid-back style in a modern package that someone can really enjoy. So, Rebel 500, 471cc parallel twin, $62.99 on the showroom floor, so a little bit pricier, 46 horsepower, 31 foot-pounds of torque, and it's just a great option. I think you could do a whole lot worse, but the bikes further up the list are either way cooler, way more flexible, or just better all around, in my opinion. But you know, I think the Rebel 500 is the one to get. Now, you might be asking, Yami, why didn't you include the Rebel 300? It's cheaper, it's better for that reason. But I think the Rebel 300 is hamstrung in the fact that you're not really going to keep it. And that's also what's hamstringing the Rebel 500 as well. It's a bike that you are always going to be like, if you start on a Rebel 500, you can be like, well, what's a big Harley like? What's an Indian Scout like? What's these other kind of motorcycles like? Or the Rebel 1100. And so it doesn't have a lot of staying power, in my opinion. A lot of the bikes further up the list now, from 5th all the way to 1st, have proper staying power. All right, folks, 5th place today in the video is the Kawasaki Ninja 400. Now, you might think I would rank the Ninja 400 as the best beginner bike, but if you really think about it, there are other options that are better, more flexible, and just overall a more complete package for the beginner rider. So, Kawasaki Ninja 400, parallel twin, 399 cc's, 48 horsepower, 28 foot-pounds of torque, $52.99 for this thing. But I saw on Kawasaki's website that depending on the paint and the ABS, you can spec it all the way to $58.99. So it's kind of a range for the price right there. The Ninja 400, it's what can you say about it? I haven't already said. I called it the perfect toilet, and it's such a great utility of a motorcycle. If you want to buy one and learn how to ride, it's perfect. You can then keep it and learn track days with it, which is awesome. None of the bikes I've mentioned so far, except for the R3 a little bit, which you honestly can, but the Ninja 400 has an entire like race category around it, you know, like people race these in Motor America's Junior Cup. I actually have one as an endurance race bike. This is a bike that you can keep for a long time in your stable, and even if you transition into adventure riding or dual sport riding or cruisers, you could always keep a Ninja 400, which I think makes it really, really powerful as a beginner bike option. Doesn't mean that you have to immediately just flip it or sell it or get rid of it. You can hold on to that bike and really keep it and do something with it. The Ninja 400 is a great motorcycle, but it's just simply not as good as some of the other bikes we're going to talk about. All right, 4th place today, and this might surprise you. Honestly, the next 3 bikes will surprise you, but 4th place is going to surprise you, is the Honda CRF 300L Rally Edition. Now, the Rally Edition is super cool. We had a CRF 300L as our giveaway bike earlier this year, and I think the Rally just takes it up extra step, an extra notch. So it's got that 286cc single cylinder making 27 horsepower, 20 foot-pounds of torque, costs $6,099 on the showroom floor. And it's kind of a sleeper hit. It's the ugly cousin to the CRF 300L dual sport bike. It's got a bigger fairing and kind of like this eyeball look to it, windshield, bigger gas tank. I think that if you're looking to get into the dual sport off-roady kind of thing, but you want a motorcycle you can still use as a daily commuter, check out this CRF 300L Rally, man. This is a really cool motorcycle, but I know that a lot of people think that it's ugly or weird or misshapen, and it's really much more of that kind of like, you know, overlanding, utilitarian look to it. But I think it's a really good beginner bike option. friendly power. If you drop it, you won't care about it. You can take it off-road. You can do all these cool stuff with it. I think it's a really cool bike, and it definitely deserves your attention. All right, third place today. And I know some of you in the other ranking video got me because I skipped fourth or third or whatever it was, but whatever. Third place in today's video is the KTM RC390, baby. What a cool motorcycle. I think the RC390 is just like the coolest beginner bike you could get. 373cc, single cylinder, 44 horsepower, and 27 foot-pounds of torque. It has a price point of $5,799, and it's such a cool little motorcycle. Fully adjustable suspension up front, except for preload, so only rebound and compression. It's got this kind of super sport styling to it, but it's not overly aggressive. Crazy, kind of orange and blue paint job to it. Got a TFT dash, so it's a little bit more premium out of the cockpit. Backlit controls. This is a motorcycle that if you're into sport bikes and you kind of want if you just want the coolest beginner bike, in my opinion, this is the coolest beginner bike. You can own something that people think is like, wow, that's a cool, flashy sport bike, but it's still a very appropriately powerful motorcycle that's not going to scare you. Much like the Ninja 400 as well, people race these all the time. It's not as popular as the Ninja 400, but it's still a popular option. And I just think the RC390 is a very, very, very cool machine. Definitely deserves your attention, and it ranks number 3 on our best beginner bikes list for today. All right, folks, we're down to the last 2. Now, the second place, you're never going to guess what I picked because I've made fun of this motorcycle for years and years and years and years and years. But there's a reason I picked this specific delineation of this bike. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm going back on my word on what I said about this machine. I still believe what I said about this bike, about the other versions of it, but I'll just tell you guys right now what number 2 is, second place. It's the Honda CB 500 X, okay? Not the R, because I still don't like the R, and I think it's overpriced and bloated and fat, and you should just get a Ninja 400 if you're looking at the R. But the X is an interesting bike. Okay, so this motorcycle, parallel twin, 471 cc's. It makes 47 horsepower, 32 foot-pounds of torque. It costs $7,199. And why is it second place? What makes this thing so special to me? Well, it's the fact that it's a great Swiss Army knife of a motorcycle. This is your entry sport touring option. This is your commuter bike. This is your long distance bike. This is your kind of gravelly forest road weekend bike. How can you go wrong with the CB 500X? It's kind of like a Versus 650, and if you want a Versus 650, you could do that, but I think the CB is that beginner-friendly option, truly a beginner bike. It's not gonna scare anybody. And you can outfit this thing with luggage, you can put heated grips on it. I mean, this is a motorcycle that it's not as big or imposing as a KLR 650, but it has that quality of being a beginner bike, all wrapped up in this kind of touring bike thing. I think you could keep this bike as a touring bike, a commuter bike in your stable as you transition to more specialized, weird or fun motorcycles, but it is really hard to say that the CB 500X isn't one of the very best beginner bike options, just objectively speaking. Yes, the RC390 is more cool and flashy, and yes, a Ninja 400 is gonna get you more attention, and a Royal Enfield is gonna be more, rumbly and cool, but I just think that the CB 500X is, if you're just looking at like stats and you're just trying to get the best of the best, then get a CB 500X. But it's not better than my first place pick. All right, folks, you've made it to the end of the video. Let's get a little drum roll, please. What is number 1 on the list today? Suzuki DRZ 400. Boom, I said it, that's it. It's the best beginner bike you could buy. Why is it the best beginner bike you can buy? Well, there's plenty of reasons. Let me give you the specs first. Suzuki DRZ 400, single cylinder, 398 cc's, costs $6,999 on the showroom floor, 39 horsepower, and 26 foot-pounds of torque. Now, this is not a perfect motorcycle, guys. It's carbureted, it's tall, it's a little bit old, in its design and its execution, but, and it's a big but, and the seat height's a little tall, but, hear me out, if you're willing to put up with those things, the DRZ 400 is hands down the best motorcycle you can start your riding journey on. The reason being is that it has plenty of poke and power to have fun with. A DRZ 400 is not gonna bore you necessarily, right? Some of these small parallel twin offerings can end up boring you a little bit. You know, you try to rev them out and it's like, it's a little slow or a little ponderous. The DRZ 400's got this punchy, snappy power. The aftermarket support on this bike is so deep and dense, and the lore about these bikes, everything is known. So if you ever have anything you want to do to this bike, go online and somebody's already done it. I think that the DRZ 400 is the type of bike where, because of how flexible it is and because of how many things you can do with it, it just sets itself apart. You can buy this thing in bone stock, dual sport configuration. You can throw on a set of Supermoto's wheels with it and hit the track with it. You can, go and rip up a kart track with it and have fun and really learn the edges of grip and actually trail braking and handling on a motorcycle in that Supermoto kind of way. You can outfit this thing as an adventure motorcycle. A lot of people have done that. You can keep it as a 50-50 dual sport bike. You can kind of really make it a pretty hardcore off-roader if you wanted to. It's always going to be a heavy pig, and I don't care what the DRZ Suzuki people tell me. My Husqvarna weighs 80 pounds less than this thing, and it always will. But you can make it a hardcore off-roader if you want. And I just think that if you're trying to start motorcycling, kind of look outside your ego, look outside wanting a Ninja 400 or an RC390. Consider a DRZ 400. Listen to an experienced motorcycle who has been there and done it. I wish I had started on a dual sport like a DRZ 400. I would have had a much better time. I would have accelerated my riding so much more. Now, you might be saying, Yami, you put the KLX 300 as 8th place, put the DRZ as 1st place. What gives? Well, there's just simply not the support for a KLX 300 that there is for a DRZ 400. And also the DRZ 400 makes more power, and more power, more better, as always. So that's just my humble opinion on what the beginner bikes of 2023 best of should be. As always, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit me up over on Discord, join our community over at yaminoob.co, become a member, get entries to win our giveaway motorcycles, and you are not going to want to miss that one. But without further ado, without anything else, what am I trying to say at the end of this one? I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Keep watching.